Take a young family with an Irish background, a great home, and swap it out for the roads of Australia and this Winnebago. Meet Pam, a leading sales executive with an idea.
Kind of just had it as a dream, and we brought this into our lives.
And hubby Kevin, a 3,000 ideas a minute school teacher. And their 4-year-old son Henry and 5-year-old daughter Millie. They want to drop their current lifestyle for an Australian adventure. Join the family on their journey, somewhere out there. In this episode of Somewhere Out There, the family hit the far north Queensland town of Normanton. They get acquainted with life in a largely Aboriginal community, have a search for some crocodiles, while Kevin follows the trials and tribulations of explorers Burke and Wills. The family arrive in the small, self-contained town of Normanton. Once in town, Pam chats to a local shopkeeper about the intense heat.
We've been here for 5 years, so we should know that, if we start feeling the heat, that you turn the fans on. But because we're so used to it, we look at the customers and they're sweating. We will see some guys sweating. You'll think, oh no.
I guess you've got the ovens. No, I can't believe you're wearing jeans. I feel hot even looking at you.
After finding a fine spot for the caravan, they prepare for a bike trip around the town. Did anybody see a crocodile?
Yeah!
As you can see, what the family are clambering on is a replica of the largest crocodile ever shot on record. Shot in Norman River in 1957 by a lady named Chris Pulowski. It weighed over 2 tons and was 8.63 meters long.
So this really is a living dinosaur, kids. This is the closest thing we'll ever get to a dinosaur that's still around. What do we think? How cool is that?
Was he actually real? Was he actually real?
Was he actually real?
Yes?
Next on the agenda, they hunt around town for some real crocs.
What we're looking at, guys, is I don't think a crocodile will get up that bank because it's very steep. But maybe some of those less steep ones where there's a bit of looks like somebody slid down on the mud. Because during the daytime, because they're reptiles, they'd be out trying to heat up their blood by being on the banks rather than swimming around. So they like to heat up. Unless they're hunting, and when they're hunting, they're going to be in the water.
The crocs aren't being very cooperative today, but we know they're there lurking under the surface of the water. And so the family head back into town. On their way back into Normanton, the family stumble across Rob. He's planning to motorcycle all the way to Iceland.
Rob just telling me he started off in Wollongong, which isn't necessarily that exciting, but his route is slightly more exciting and a little bit more dangerous, I think. He's going to Iceland.
I want to get to Iceland and mess around there for a month or so, and then I think come back to the UK and try and pick work up there. And, work there for a year or two and see what I feel like doing after that. Maybe go across Russia or something.
Okay, and where's your route going to take you on the way to Iceland? I mean,
From here,
Yeah.
from here to Darwin across the Gulf with Carpentaria, and then into East Timor, to Dili, and then up through Indonesia, Southeast Asia, and then 6 months in India.
And have you checked the sort of ferries, or are you going to fly? Or
I know there's a boat from Darwin to East Timor, and after that I'll just sort of work it out as I go.
Wing it. That's what we kind of tend to wing it, but it's slightly easier winging it in this country.
So I've got to go to India and then Pakistan, and then there's Afghanistan. Because I mean, you get all the media stuff, and they tell you as soon as you go into Afghanistan you get shot straight away. But whether it's true or not, that might be a load of crap.
It's good that I met you, because we passed a cyclist the other day, looked like we were cycling around Australia, and he was just going the wrong direction. It's great to get you stopped and finally meet somebody crazier than us. We'll have to steal a few ideas.
That's done. Third night, I pulled into an information centre and asked them, is there somewhere good to camp with a river or a lake or something that I can have a bit of a bath in? And they said, not really, there's one about half hour out of town. And the old guy there actually offered me his house and said, look, just come and stay with me and my wife. And the night after that I camped by myself, and then 2 older couples turned up and they fed me that night. They just said, come over and sit down and have a couple of beers with us. And it's been really good. Like doing it alone, it's really nice to have a bit of human contact every now and then.
Back at the caravan park, the family relax by the pool. And because it's a volcanic area, the pool is fed by a geothermic aquifer.
Oh, fantastic! Oh, look how fantastic! Come on, you're nearly there, nearly there. Oh, nearly there.
Nice to get a moment. Just great thing about swimming is they just totally entertain themselves. You know, they're so happy they don't need any entertainment. So I'm reading a 4-year-old Woman's Weekly, and I'm in heaven. Yeah, that lady I met at the pool, lovely lady. She's travelling on her own, and she said to me, I met this lovely family with 3 kids, and they're from Sydney, and their name is Malpass, which is quite an unusual name. And I said, not Maria Malpass. She goes, oh my God, do you know them? And they go to school in the same school as Millie and Henry, but they're travelling with their 3 kids, and she's met them 3 times along the way, which is great. So I'm going to get their details and see if we can follow their blog, and they're over in Western Australia now. So it's lovely to know that somebody else from school is doing a similar trip.
Kev meets up with David, a local attorney, to discuss the social issues facing the Indigenous population of Normanton.
Normanton's about 70% Aboriginal, so it's a fairly mixed community. It is what I think most of the time is a fairly functional and a fairly friendly community. Obviously there are issues with alcohol, but I'd suggest that by and large this is a fairly friendly place to live.
I never ever felt threatened, or we never felt threatened. But you know what? You still, when you see a white person, or when you see a white person coming in and getting a case of beer, you think, oh, there's a great party going on, I wonder what they're up to. Then you look, then you see an Aboriginal person coming in, getting a case of beer, you go, oh my God, what are they going to do? So you have that built-in prejudice, and you know, that's just the way it is.
I believe, I'm in teaching because I believe partly the world can get better, and I wouldn't be teaching if I didn't think it could make it better. I'm not a skeptic, and I don't think that I just see things and think this is the way they're going to be, this is the way they have been, it's going to continue like that. I'm talking about specifically now with you, with the Indigenous population of Australia. When I came here about 8 years ago, I decided I was going to be an Australian. I've since been got citizenship, my wife's got citizenship, my kids were born here. When my son had his naming day, he had Aboriginal naming day, that was my recognition that as Australians, that's our heritage. It's breaking my heart here on our travels. I'm just seeing the stereotyping, what we see on TV of Aboriginal communities. We were in the pub 2 nights ago, it was Saturday night. There must have been between maybe 2 hours that I was there, 15 people come up in cars, get a box of 4X beer and disappear. When I see Indigenous people drinking, I'm sorry, I just think, you know, we've messed up. It's not just social drinking. In here it says things about, you know, there's laws that prevent people do get in trouble with violence. They're not allowed to buy alcohol for 6 months. But
know that when I was 15 I was buying alcohol, somebody else buys it for you. So does any laws work here regarding alcohol?
Other places in the Gulf of Carpentaria are Mornington Island. I'm not sure if you've heard of that particular place, but alcohol is actually completely banned there. What that has meant ultimately is that there is still alcoholic substances in Mornington Island. However, a good deal of that alcohol is home-brewed product. What that unfortunately means is that a lot of those home-brew substances are very high in alcohol, very high in sugar. They are brewed in quite unsanitary conditions. In some respects, that response has been a success in terms of, say, the level of violence, but there are, I'd suggest, significant problems up there with things like kidney failure and with diabetes, given the conditions of the home brewing.
Is it okay to ban alcohol, or is that just a human rights violation that you don't know that? I know you said about homebrew, but just say you take that all out, you can't sell it. I mean, if I was in a community where things were bad with alcohol, I'd be saying, guys, this is the core. We're not going to heal until we remove this.
I think that in terms of resolving problems, or at least working on problems that exist within the Aboriginal community, that the most successful outcomes have been achieved where initiatives have been basically started from the ground up from the communities themselves. I'd suggest that any solution that came from the top down is ultimately not going to be successful. I think largely what other Australian people can do is they can become aware of the problems, they can become more familiar with Aboriginal culture, and my hope is that in that familiarity there might be more of a push to achieve real outcomes.
In 1860, Robert O'Hara Burke and William John Wills led a failed expedition of 19 men from Melbourne in the south of Australia all the way to the Gulf of Carpentaria, a distance of around 3,000 kilometres. Kev asked local welder Ron Sternfeld about the Burke and Wills legacy.
But they could never ever find the coast. They never ever could. If you know the area, there's no way in the world they could get to the sea from where they were.
Why? I mean, there's mangroves there, but why couldn't
mangroves? Yeah.
Why couldn't they find us? Because you just get like
you just can't get through them.
I mean, I was aware of their route, and it was tragic, and they died, except for just one member of their crew. I guess a lot of people at that time weren't terribly friendly to the local indigenous, so that if they had been, they might have got there and they might have survived.
Of course.
They could have used their help.
Leichhardt was here in the same country. Leichhardt was here 15 years before Burke and Wills, and every camp that he came across, he went in and tried their tucker, and he survived.
Yeah.
He done a lot better job than Burke and Wills.
So Burke and Wills were just after the money, you reckon, or?
Well, I don't know about after the money, probably the glory, or...
Yeah.
One of the most famous parts of the account is the blaze on a tree left with an X marking food and supplies. Sadly, this arrangement didn't play out, and shortly afterwards, Burke and Wills died. Kev travels out to the Burke and Wills camp, where the tree with the blaze still stands.
You know, we share something that we, with them, Pam and I, Burke and Wills, they had a dream to do something. Unfortunately, they died trying to fulfill their dream, but at least they succeeded and they dared, and that's more than most people do. And you know, we take our hats off to them. 6 members of the Burke and Wills team were Irish. This was an Irish adventure. Even one of the people who were giving the reward money, as I see, is £2,000. 1,000 of that was given by a successful Irish merchant from Melbourne, by the looks of things. And you can see this is, you know, it was Irish people making a mark on this country. It's really very much part of our culture, our heritage. Walker marked a tree FW 12th January 1862, and that tree is the feature of the site now and the sole focus of tourist attraction. It is generally thought to be the Burke and Wills tree.
There seems to be a few alternatives offered up as to which one is the tree with the blaze. And of course this ground has moved over time, which doesn't make it any easier.
There is a tree carved in a picture there, and I'm just trying to wonder what is the tree they actually carved the details in. To stop people maybe damaging the tree, they've gone and named a load of trees around. So people aren't quite sure which the tree is, I don't know. They've just marked a number of trees that seem to have some indentation. You know, it wasn't necessarily the North Pole or the South Pole, it wasn't first getting to America, or, you know, it wasn't Captain Cook being the European to land here or something. This was extremely harsh, with setting out with a couple of camels and supplies and a few good men to go up the centre of Australia. You know, Pam and I dared to do something that was a little bit different too, so it does make me feel connected to these guys a little bit, I think.
It's the early morning, and the family set off to see the Old Tin Hare, or more formally known as the Gulflander. The Gulflander is a train connecting Croydon and Normanton. Built to accommodate the gold rush, commentators at the time recorded the railway as travelling over some of the most flooded and rotten countryside in Australia.
Yeah.
So just to the stations, just the capital stations, it was delivering the mail and delivering food as well?
Supplies, and tourism as well was quite big, but now that they've sealed the road, it's really become a tourism thing. We still deliver mail to cattle properties.
Okay.
However, I guess the government can afford to keep it running as well, and it's a bit of a flagship, and it's also heritage listed. There were 38 of these built for Queensland Rail. Victoria had some. Yeah, well, they imported the chassis and engines from AEC company in United Kingdom. They built the first London buses. So they're just a bus chassis with a bus engine. And the railways imported them and just put these little timber canopies on them. And the whole purpose of them, the purpose of rail motor is that it's cheap to run. So hand crank start, so I'll start it up for you. How's that?
Hand crank start.
The thumbs are always on the outside, right? Okay. Go for a quick spin, eh?
After the train ride, the family take a look at the attached museum, and Kev learns a bit more about Burke and Wills.
Interesting, those bits of trees that was just commenting on. So we went out to Burke and Wills site.
Camp 119.
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah.
And it was just because there's all these trees with plaques, so we're presuming that they weren't quite sure what tree it was because it's been so long now. So this actual is the tree that these guys marked, which is amazing.
Blazed, yeah.
Blazed tree. Blazed tree just means a tree that's been slashed as an used
Yeah, they
marker.
cut the face off it so that they can cut initials or a message into the wood.
Henry, there's a typher!
You do as well, dude. Okay, lovely meeting you, Kat. Okay, I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. It was really fun. It's always, trains are always great fun. They always have some little connection there. It's a romantic notion of going on a train trip, and it was great.
The family must now say goodbye to Normanton and make their last journey before reaching the Gulf of Carpentaria.
I look forward to it even being straighter, red dirt on either side, and that was my vision. I just needed a couple of 100 kilometres of driving a long straight road, red dirt either side, a few bits of scrubby trees, and that was my goal, that was my journey. My first impressions of Corumba weren't good. It was the anticlimax town. It's a great trip we've been having, and then I get to somewhere and I feel a little bit disappointed that it wasn't where it was supposed to be, and it's like a ghost town.
It's just here. Love it. And he looks kind of swollen or something. I was great. I was just thinking the other day we hadn't seen a snake on our travels. Do you think he's poisonous, Busty?
What on this tray floats or sinks? So, a grape.
Sink.
That when we wrote it down, a grape sinks. Okay. Amelia's in the Montessori system back in Sydney with Henry, and that system is very much the child works in the classroom to the particular I guess subject they're interested in that time. So Amelia might do a whole afternoon on geography, but it would be self-taught, so she would be doing puzzle maps and tracing flags and a lot of very kind of hands-on. A lot of it's very sensorial, so they learn to read and write through sandpaper letters, so they can feel the sandpaper, and then they're transferring that onto paper. So it's very different to what we're doing here, which is the obviously state-based DEET system, Department of Education. But I'm actually really enjoying it. So we're trying to keep the Montessori element going, because obviously Millie and Henry will be going back into Montessori school, but also meeting the demands of the public system, and it's quite a lot of work. How many circles are in the picture?
4.
4, okay. Millie? You've got a 5.5-year-old who taunts her brother. I mean, that's just, she's just that slightly a little bit older than him. He's actually very sensitive, so he bursts into tears quite easily because she is his idol. And then when she's mean to him, he just can't cope. And his only way of dealing with it is to rush at her with all guns blazing. No.
Okay, I'm going to have to take you out behind with the pinch, because there's no room for fighting.
You're stuck in hot. It got up to 40 degrees yesterday, so we've got a bit of aircon in the front, but it doesn't come into the back here. So the kids are on their own in the back, driving along in 40-degree heat. So obviously there are times where they need to let off steam,
We have, without doubt, found the nicest place to stay. I'm glad we're not in town. Pam's feeling a bit sick. We'll set up our table on the beach. We'll have some prawns. We'll see if we can get a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc. I look forward to that. We'll make the best of it.
Can you see things slowly reveal themselves and become clearer and more focused? And that's been it about this leg of the journey. It's all about focus. You arrive in a place and it doesn't reveal itself straight away, but slowly you focus in on what's good about it. I think we have to talk about travel and expectation. Travel seems to have 2 elements: what's in our head about what we will see when we get to a place, and what it's really like when we get there. And if the 2 things miss, if you under expect or over expect, things can go really well or really wrong. But places are what they are. Next week, the kids make some new friends. They look at the history of an iconic Australian institution, the Royal Flying Doctor. Finally, they enter the Northern Territory before delving deeper into Aboriginal culture in Tennant Creek.